Right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We are not having class today, so I wanted to upload a video of just kind of talking about what we typically talk about, as well as some important announcements about next week. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. So the typical announcements that we'll start with is just kind of what's happening this week. Let me get down to where we want to be. We are on, yep, right here. So we wrapped up Unit 5 last week, and now we are focusing on the test. So hopefully at this point in this week, you should have had time to prep and start doing this review. Let me just kind of remind you, I know I've said this a couple times over the last week or so. If you haven't done the weekly practice problems, like for example, last week with 5.5, if you are not in the habit of doing these practice problems, I would say and it totally depends on the person, but if you haven't been doing those practice problems, I'm a little nervous for you, right? Not to say that this test is super hard, but if you've never demonstrated or practiced the concepts that you've learned, it's kind of a bad idea to practice them on the test, if that makes sense. So what I want to encourage you to do before you jump into this test this week, if you haven't already, make sure you've gone back and completed these practice problems from each of these sections. This unit hasn't been very long as far as the amount of material you have to cover and the practice problems that are in each lesson. So it's not going to take a ton of time. Maybe if you skipped every single lesson's practice problems, again, I would highly encourage you to go back and do that because that will prep you for the test this week. If you've already done those practice problems, what I would encourage you to do is make sure you knock out this review. This review, again, like we've talked about, is just basically a snapshot of what each lesson talked about. But again, this review isn't totally covering everything from the lesson. It does a pretty good job of talking about most of it. But that's why I want to highly encourage you to go back and do these practice problems, because then that is a solid amount of problems, a good representation of what each lesson represents. So if you're doing those practice problems. At the very least, make sure you do the review. The test is here, it's unlocked. It's due this Sunday by 11:59 p.m., which is March 28th. If you choose to not do the practice problems, not do the review, and take the test, that's up to you. It's open and available. If you take this test and it doesn't go the way you planned, or you didn't get a score that you wanted, you have the option to take the retest. The retest is open. There is no prerequisite to take this retest. It's not like you have to redo something or anything like that. It's just open and available to you. But again, just like I promoted this last week, I would highly recommend, if you didn't do well on this test, make sure you go back, do the practice problems for each of these lessons. Make sure you go back and do the review, or just reach out to me and send me an email. We'll jump on our Zoom call and I can help you out, answer any questions you have, things like that, in order to prep you for the retest. You got two ways to demonstrate, knowledge from Unit 5, the test and the retest. So, don't waste either one of those opportunities. Make sure you prep yourself for the test. If you've taken the test and it didn't go well, make sure you prep yourself for the retest, okay? With that said, the higher of the two scores will go in the grade book. So I will go in what they call no count. I will no count the lower of the two scores. So you'll still see both scores in Skyward. It's just the lower of the two will be no counted. As always, if something happens and I miss that and you have both test scores after I grade things on Monday, if you have both test scores, the test and the retest in Skyward, and they're both counting against you, just shoot me an email. I'll fix it super quick and easy. Just let me know. While you're doing this review, make sure you have this review solution manual open. Those two should go hand in hand. It's basically every step that you need to take, as well as the answers for answering these review problems. So have that open. Or you can access my video tutorial, which is just me going completely through each lesson and just emphasizing things, talking about vocab, going through all the work, the problems, things like that. So one thing we are not going to do this week is talk about the next week's stuff. You'll notice at this point in the week, typically I say, okay, next week's stuff unlocked. But because next week is different, we are starting, I guess you could just call it the hybrid schedule next week. We're not going to do that anymore. So next week's stuff will unlock on Monday when, the week starts, and it'll close out on Sunday. So everything will be due that Sunday of next week. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that. So we'll stop sharing, and I want to open up one more document, and then we'll keep talking about what I need to do. Here we go. So I have already mentioned that next week starts our hybrid schedule. And the way it works is next week is seniors, the seniors that chose to be hybrid. Group A will come back and they'll be in person at school on Monday, Wednesday. Group B will come back and be in person on Tuesday, Thursday, and then anybody that's not in person. So for example, on Monday of next week, Group A will be in person. So Group B and then everybody else that chose to stay 100% remote will all be at home. Everybody needs to attend those classes throughout the day. So it's no longer the attendance option where you have those 3 ways to be marked present: either attend a class, contact the teacher, or access Canvas. We're kind of back to the old school of attendance where show up to class on time. And then just to be clear, when it says first period here, first period starts, you could see it, this schedule right here, at 7:30. So if you show up to class either in person or if you show up to the Zoom call at 7:30, you'll be marked tardy because 7:30 is when class begins. So you need to be in class in person, or on Zoom, you need to be there by 7:29 at the latest. Try not to push it too close to the starting time because then it just kind of delays class. But anybody that logs into Zoom from 7:30 on will just be left in the waiting room until I figure out a good time to let those people in. And more importantly, what I'm trying to emphasize is that they'll be marked tardy. Let's just kind of keep going with this example from first period for next Monday. So first period runs from 7:30 to 8:28. So if you show up at 7:30 or after 7:30, you'll be marked tardy. Just like in past school years, if you show up to class 10 minutes or more late, so if you show up to first period at 7:40 or after that, you're automatically marked absent. And then let's say, for example, either in person or at home, you show up on time, you show up at 7:27, perfect, you're marked present. But then let's say if you're one of the at-home people, either it's not your group that day or you're just 100% remote. And let's say you disconnect at 7:48 and you never come back to class. It's not like it was an internet issue or something like that. You'll also be marked absent. So make sure you're attending class for the entire duration of the class. Just like if we were in a regular school year, you would have to be in your seat from the start of class to the end of class. And that's how you're marked present. If you decided to leave class 20 minutes early and say you're going to the bathroom but never come back, you'd be marked absent. Same kind of things are happening next week, starting with next week. So keep that in mind. Class periods, whenever they're happening, you're expected to still either be part of the group that's in person, or you're part of the group, or you're 100% hybrid that's remote that day. You need to be in that session, in that Zoom session, the whole entire class period. Some people have said, well, what happens if we have like an internet issue? That's going to happen. Chromebooks are in the middle of class. They're going to need to be restarted. Stuff happens like that. And I understand that. You just have to communicate that with your teacher. If I say your teacher versus me, I just mean in general. You need to communicate that with your teacher. If I had somebody that joined at 7:30 or 7:25, and then all of a sudden at 8:15 they dropped off, but then they joined back again at 8:20 for first period, I'm not even going to call them out. I'm not even going to say anything. That's fine. I'm assuming just something happened and they had to restart something. But like I said, if you join at 7:25 and then all of a sudden you take off, you disconnect at 8 o'clock and you're gone for the remainder of the 28 minutes of class, you'll be marked absent, especially if you don't reach out to me. I'll be doing that each day. So I would say if you have a problem, if something's standing in your way from joining class, if you're having an issue, just make sure you communicate with your teachers. Otherwise, you'll be marked absent. The other thing that's come up with multiple people is I have a job, right? I have a job, I'm working, I start work at 10 o'clock, right? Take a look at next Monday, right? Third period is from 9:26 to 10:14. People are like, I have a job, I got to be to work at 10. That time is over as far as I'm concerned. Even throughout this whole COVID time at home thing, legally, no employer should have been employing employing a student throughout the workday or throughout your school day. Right now, employers that are employing students, at 10 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock, that is illegal. It's against the law. Your number one job right now is to be a student, not to be working at a job. So that's something you'll have to manage and figure out if that applies to you. As far as I'm concerned, and you could talk to individual teachers, as far as I'm concerned, though, I'm expecting everybody to be in class from start to finish. So if you need to leave class early or you want to get excused, once or twice a week or whatever, because you work, that's not going to be acceptable with me. So you'll have to contact the administration and figure something out with them, or just change your schedule at work. So that doesn't apply to a ton of people, but the people that it does, I hope you kind of start working towards making your schedule fit your school schedule, not the opposite way around. What you're seeing in front of you right here is basically the schedule for just next week. Next week is conference week. For some reason, whoever the powers that be decided that it would be good to start high school on conference week. To me, that's crazy, but whatever. So we are where we're at. So we're going to have a different schedule next week compared to when we come back from spring break. So this schedule is only applying to next week. Next week is student-led conferences. You can see from this kind of all this information here that student-led conferences are on Tuesday and Wednesday from 12 to looks like 6:30. So that's the reason why the schedule is kind of all jacked up next week and things look a lot different. So I'm putting this on here because I want to make sure that everybody either screenshots this or writes this information down. I'm assuming admin has emailed this out and this information has already came to your inbox or your family's inbox. If not, like I said, write the information down, take a screenshot of it, and you can have it. Essentially what next week is all half-day releases. So if you look at the schedule here, let's go ahead and look at Mondays. The first thing that I really want to emphasize with this schedule is that Monday and Tuesday are both first through third period, right? So think about it like today. In this time, so far what we've seen this whole entire year is it's been 1 through 3 on Monday, 4 through 6 on Tuesday, 1 through 3 on Wednesday, 4 through 6 on Thursday. That schedule is over. The first thing that I really want to emphasize is that the schedule changed. Now Monday and Tuesday are both 1 through 3. Then Wednesday and Thursday are both 4 through 6. Okay. The second thing that I want to emphasize is that Group A is actually going in person. So they'll be going into school on Monday, Wednesday. So you can see that over here. Here's in-person Group A. And then here's in-person Group A on Wednesday. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, that's in-person Group B, and then in-person Group B. So like I said, you're either part of Group 1, or they're calling that Group A, Group 2, or again, that's referred to as Group B, or you're part of the 100% remote people that are just going to stay remote. You'll never come to school. Just keep in mind the schedule change, 1 through 3 on Monday, Tuesday. So basically Group A will be in periods 1 through 3 on Monday, and then Group B and the 100% remote will all be at home, logging in and participating. Then on Tuesday, again, it's 1 through 3, but now Group B will be in person. So Group A and the 100% remote will all be at home. And then it just switches to 4, 5, and 6 on Wednesday, Thursday. So next week, because it is conferences, you'll notice the classes are a lot shorter. So first period is 58 minutes. Second period is 48 and third period is 48. Some people have asked, why is first period a little bit longer? What they're doing is they're calling it, I don't know what the term is. I think it's on the next document we're going to look at. It's called like first period prep, or let me look actually, extended first. So they're calling that extended first period. So the reason why first period has an extra 10 minutes this next week is because each teacher is going to use it differently. It just depends on the teacher. Some teachers are going to use it to check and make sure all the health screeners have been completed. If it's not, then that student will basically be asked to leave until they complete their health screener. So that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that the teacher can choose to do during that extended first period. Some teachers have talked that they're going to use it as like a study hall, so people can kind of get themselves prepped and ready for the day. If they didn't do an assignment and they got an extra 10 or 15 minutes in the morning to do that. It just depends on the teacher. So it depends on who your first or your fourth period teacher is on that week. Then it's 48 minutes for second period, 48 minutes for third period. And then the way it's going to work next week is the lunch is grab and go. So as soon as third period ends at 10:14, then everybody will be dismissed to do a grab and go lunch. And then everybody heads home at 10:30. So pretty much the same thing on Tuesday, except for now group B is in class. And then on Wednesday, same exact thing, same schedule, but now you're dealing with fourth, fifth, and sixth. Same time frames though. Group A is in person. And then on Thursday, still fourth, fifth, and sixth, nothing different, but group B is in person. Fridays are going to continue just being, they don't really know exactly what's going to kind of take up Friday. They've talked about advisory sessions. That's the last time I heard, is that you'll be doing like an advisory every Friday, but I guess more info to come with that. So next week is our first week back. It is also conference week. So we just went over that schedule. The week after that is spring break. So this is actually, and I think it's the 12th of April. If I'm wrong, it's just the Monday after spring break. Believe it's the 12th of April. That's when our normal schedule is kicking off. So it's kind of weird to do a new schedule next week when you're first going back. And then when you come back from spring break, it's a totally new schedule again, but that's just the way it is. So here's what I'm talking about with that extended first. So this extended first will start at 7:30. It'll last for 15 minutes and then it'll end at 7:45. Okay, it'll end at 7:45. And again, that time is going to be used differently from one teacher to the next. It just depends on the teacher. So there's no passing time just because you'll already be in first period. You can also think about this for Wednesday, Thursday as extended fourth, and then fourth period, fifth period, sixth period. Okay, it's the same schedule. They're just referencing first, second, and third here. So after the extended first period, you'll notice that there's first period here. First period will start at 7:45. It'll last for an hour and 25 minutes, so 85 minutes total, and then it'll end at 9:10. 85 minutes sounds like a lot, right? I'm a little stressed about that. I've got a plan on how we're going to use that 85 minutes because, again, I don't want to basically throw a lesson at you and then have that take 20, 30 minutes. And then now all of a sudden you have 50 minutes or an hour that you're just sitting there, sleeping, playing on your phone, doing other homework. I feel like that would be a waste of time. So I got a plan on how we're going to kind of, structure those periods. Just keep in mind, right? The 85 minutes for all these periods, you will be expected to be there present in class or on your Zoom session for the entire time. If you disconnect and leave, again, if it's just for a minute or two because you had to restart your Chromebook, that's not a big deal. But if you leave for a good chunk of time, 10, 15, 20 minutes or the rest of the period, you'll be marked absent. So you want to make sure, I would recommend restarting your Chromebook every morning, making sure it's fresh, and then make sure you're participating and you're engaged that whole time. First period, again, will last 85 minutes. You'll have a 5-minute passing period, just like in past years. And then second period will start at 9:15. Again, another 85-minute passing period that will end at 10:40. I think I said 85-minute, another 85-minute period That will end at 10:40. And then you'll have a 5-minute passing period to go over to third period, which starts at 10:45. This is a little bit unique. There's going to be 3 separate lunches, again, because all these COVID restrictions, they have to do certain things, in a very specific way. And so it's no longer 2 lunches, there's 3 lunches. And here's the way it works. First lunch will actually start at the same time as third period. So what's essentially going to happen for people that have first lunch is they're going to leave second period at 10:40. And then they're going to go to first lunch at 10:45. So they won't even go to their third period class. They'll have a 35-minute lunch, and then that will end at 11:20. And then that means they have to be back at third period, back in their third period class at 11:20. So that's first lunch. Second lunch, the way it's going to work is you'll start third period at 10:45. Second lunch will start at 11:30. So 45 minutes into class, you'll take a break, go to lunch for 35 minutes, and then head back to class at 12:05, which again, then you will finish class, that class period at 12:45. So for second lunch, you'll have another 40 minutes once you go back to class to finish up material or do whatever you're doing. Third lunch is a little bit different. If you have third lunch, you will start class at 10:45. You will go the hour and 25 minutes, and then you will start lunch at 12:10, basically do your lunch period, and then you will leave at the same time that third period's ending as well. So first lunch is basically at the start of third period. Then after lunch, you'll go to third period, then do the class for an hour and 25 minutes. Second lunch is actually in the middle, and that's the lunch that I have for math. So if you have me first or fourth period, if you have me third or sixth period, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be starting third or sixth period, taking a break in the middle, going to lunch, and then coming back for the next 40 minutes. And then third lunch is basically you're going to third period, you're going to do your whole hour and 25 minutes, and then you will leave at the same time third period ends. So you'll notice I have some kind of some notes over here. In a typical year, they call it open campus. Our Timberline campus is open. You can leave campus and go to the gas station, go to McDonald's, Taco Bell, whatever, and get some lunch and come back, right? Because of COVID restrictions, they are not allowing students to do that with first and second lunch. And the reason is they don't want people leaving for first and second lunch, going somewhere, home, McDonald's, whatever, and then bringing COVID back to school, essentially. They have to do this whole contact tracing. So they don't want people leaving school, coming back to school, and then they can't trace what happened or where somebody was at that day. But the one thing that's kind of a little bit, I don't know, you can kind of call it unfair, is that third lunch, if you have that period, you can leave. Because essentially, if you have third lunch, you'll start third period at 10:45. You'll do the entire period, the whole hour and 25 minutes. Third lunch will start at 12:10, and then you could leave for lunch or for the day. You won't even have to come back. So that's why third lunch is actually open campus, because you could technically leave for the day. If you want to just go home, or if you want to go out to lunch, you can. You just aren't allowed to come back to school and start walking around and things like that. So yes, each class is an hour and 25 minutes, 85 minutes in total. Every class is going to be structured differently. It just depends on the class, what that's going to look like. I've heard some teachers say they're going to teach lessons, and then the rest of the time is going to be study hall. I've heard some teachers say they're going to split lessons up, multiple parts throughout the day or throughout the period. So that way, people can work, maybe have a little bit of break if they finish, and then they'll come back together in the middle of class, reteach something, go through some more examples, some stuff like that, just to kind of keep you busy for the whole time. It just depends on your teacher. So that is the schedule for next week. One thing that I want to emphasize that I forgot to emphasize with Algebra 2 is if you're looking for a schedule change, if you're looking at this schedule and you're like, man, that really sucks. I don't know if I want to be sitting in class for 85 minutes twice a week or whatever, right? you have the option to withdraw from hybrid and go to 100% remote, but you do not have the option to go from 100% remote to hybrid just because of scheduling. So if you're going to school, you're hybrid and you go through that first week and it was miserable, an 85-minute period in all your classes, and you and your family, think it's okay for you to go just 100% hybrid and do it all from home, that's an option available to you. But again, the other way, going from 100% hybrid, 100% remote to hybrid, will not be. They won't take that into account. You won't be able to do that. All right, I want to talk about just a few more things that I have. So just because I want to, make sure all this stuff is presented to you and you're comfortable at least starting next week with kind of what the expectation will look like and, some things that are changing. Okay. So the first thing that I want to mention is that you must attend class. Again, we've already talked about being marked present, right? Right now, being marked present looks a lot different than with being marked present for starting next week. So you must attend class. When class starts at 7:30, that doesn't mean that you can join at 7:30, right? 7:30 is when class begins. So if you want to be on time and present for a 7:30 class, you need to be in that Zoom session no later than 7:29. Try not to back it up too close to the class because then it just delays getting class started and things like that. So I would recommend 5 minutes before class, start logging in, start getting into the class, into the waiting room, and that way you guarantee that you'll be in on time. All lessons will be done during class. So far we've done what they call a flipped classroom, where I basically teach the entire lesson, go through all the problems, everything using a video. That way the time that we had during a live session could be used for answering questions and doing work one-on-one or with small groups over Zoom. That's going to change next week. So starting next week, there will be no more video tutorials. There's not going to be any more recordings uploaded to class, uploaded to Canvas. Starting next week, it's basically going to be very similar to years ago, right? When we actually had class. If you missed first period, it was your responsibility to get the information to find out what happened from first period. And to get that knowledge on your own, either go to 411, the after school tutoring program, get help from friends, contact or go through Khan Academy or something like that. That's going to be kind of the way it's going to work starting next week. So if you miss class for whatever reason, it's going to be on you to learn that material and to process it and do the work and get yourself caught up. But like I said, I will not be recording the classes. The classes aren't going to be recorded and uploaded to Canvas. You'll have to attend class in order to get that information. Nothing will be uploaded. Again, I already talked about tutorials and stuff like that. Check-ins. So right now, our two assignments are check-ins and vocab and concepts. So starting next week, we're going to get rid of vocab and concepts. We're going to do just check-ins as far as Canvas is concerned, like the old stuff that we were doing. We'll still be doing check-ins every week. But the second part that's taking the place of vocab and concepts is going to be either book problems or worksheet problems. It just depends on the week, what I want to do. Again, this is the first year going through this book and using the book. There's some things I like about it. There's some things I don't. I don't really like the pacing. Well, not the pacing. I don't really like the structure. I kind of wish we did some things maybe out of the order from the book, and those are just the things that I'll be able to kind of manipulate and change around. But I'll make sure it's crystal clear that week when we meet, telling you which problems we're doing, what I want you to do, things like that. We'll cover that every week, every class period. So expect a check-in and then either book problems or worksheet problems. While I'm thinking about it, let me emphasize something. You haven't had worksheet problems like my Algebra 2 class has. And we'll emphasize this next week when we actually start doing problems. When you're doing book problems, I'm talking like practice problems or worksheet problems, excuse me. You'll need to, if you're doing it on a worksheet, you don't have to copy down the problem. But if you're taking information, if you're taking problems from a worksheet and copying it down on a piece of paper, or you're taking problems from the book and copying it down on the piece of paper, this is what I expect. And again, I will cover this all next week as well. But you'll have to write down the original problem, the problem that they're giving you. Okay. You'll have to write down each step in order to start from starting the problem to finishing the problem. That's super important. One problem I've had in Algebra 2 is some people are just writing down the original problem and then the answer. There's no work shown, so they don't get credit for that. It's a 0 until you show the work. Another thing that I've seen is they'll write down the original problem and then they'll write down like maybe 1 step or 2 steps when it takes multiple steps. And then again, they won't get credit. They'll have to show each step. So what happens is, just like I demonstrate in my videos, I need to be able to look at that problem and look at the original problem and then look at your work and be able to walk myself through your thought process until you get down to the final answer. Okay, that's the main idea. Some people are using things like Photomath, and we'll talk about this next week. You know, there's apps out there where you can scan problems and stuff like that. Sometimes those steps are not all the way through, and it's obvious. I mean, I'll see problems, especially in Algebra 2, where you can see that it was weird because they solved it in a different way than you taught. And of course, you know, I take out my phone and I've got Photomath and I scan it and it's the same exact steps. And, you know, I'm not crazy to think that people are using Photomath right now. Of course they are. But again, just because Photomath is only showing those steps, that might not be acceptable. You'll have to show each step to solving the problems. And again, we'll emphasize that next week when we actually do some of these things. So, and then the next thing I'm going to talk about, which, you know, I think I might have already mentioned, is typically at this point, we'd be talking about next week's work. I'm not going to be unlocking stuff early. We will just be unlocking the week's work during the week, just because now we have tons of time in class. Technically, from this week and before, you should have had 5 hours a week, you know, for each class. That was the expectation. So the expectation was you were setting aside 5 hours each week to spend time on geometry. Was that happening? No, right? I get that. That's fine. But starting next week, now we'll have 2 85-minute periods, which is what, hour and 25. So that's almost 3 hours, right? 2 hours and 50 minutes. So that means the other 2 hours and 10 minutes will be spent on your own, you know, on your own time doing that stuff and catching yourself up. So just expect that. That's why we didn't talk about next week's stuff. Next week's stuff on Monday, which is Monday, the 29th, I believe. That stuff will unlock on Monday, and then we'll talk about it in class. So other than that, I think that's it. I think there's so much information, but I wanted to kind of share some of it, like the schedule and how it's going to look, and maybe some differences, like as far as we're changing the way assignments are going to be working. I'm not going to be uploading video tutorials, you know, no videos at all. No instruction is getting uploaded to Canvas. So you'll have to attend class. I just want to throw that out there so that way people are making plans, you know, to make sure that they're doing their job and attending class throughout the duration of the period. So that way they're not missing anything and they're getting all the information they need to be getting. So of course, we're going to be talking more about this next week when we meet whenever we meet next week. So of course, if you have any questions that are just, you know, you're killing to ask, right? You know, you're just super stressed about, send me an email. I'm happy to address them and write you back before next week. But I think everybody should be pretty much set up and ready to go for next week. And then we'll kind of keep talking about this stuff. And just keep in mind that this whole thing, moving back next week, is a hybrid schedule. It's a learning process, right? I mean, I hope you've been, you know, you haven't beat yourself up too much if you haven't gotten assignments done every week or something like that. Give yourself a little bit of grace. And just like we started off at the beginning of the year, you know, make sure you're giving other teachers grace when it comes to, you know, how classes are going to work. I know with me personally, I've spent a lot of time thinking about how classes are going to work next week. Do I think that that's the best way? No, because we've never done this before, right? So will things change? Probably. I'm not sure. I mean, hopefully the way I have them set up is going to be great and that'll go through the rest of the year and we'll be good. But if not, if things have to change, they will, right? So I'm not against, changing things around just to, make it better. So don't forget, send me an email today, tomorrow, this weekend, whatever. If you have any questions at all about anything, I'm here for you. And I'm excited to start school again next week. All right. We'll see you guys.